No one gets over losing a loved one. It eats them up, devours them from the inside. The irrefutable knowledge that the person, along with all their quirks, traits, and memories, evaporated when they passed. The blip in time we exist in can be easy to understand as forever, because our lifetime is our forever. It can be hard to imagine that before you were born, eons had passed, and they will continue to pass once you are gone. It turns out you were not the protagonist, nor a supporting actor. You were one of a billion stagehands. Hearing this, it can be easy to coil up in despair. But the permanence and grief of death is only one take. In response to death, and knowing its crawling approach, many across history have tried to evade it. Giovanni Battista Cibo reached the peak of his ecclesiastical career when he became Pope in 1484. Hence, after a brief 8 years of papal existence, he began to fall ill and was not prepared to die. So he asked some of his physicians to help, and they came up with a solution. The physicians brought 3 boys before the Pope. They agreed to give their blood to the pontiff. As a rejuvenation technique, the physicians performed a blood transfusion to Giovanni, slowly draining the blood of the boys. Unfortunately, the 3 boys and the Pope all ended up dying in the middle of the procedure. This panic-stricken, irrational response to death is arrogant for multiple reasons. How long is forever? Imagine you had been granted eternal life, to live indefinitely. How long is that? Imagine witnessing the death of stars, the universe, and even your own species. You watch as light goes out from every corner of space, but revel in the fact that you have made countless more memories than as to what you would have if you had died at the average human age. In response to this hyperbolic scenario, people would scoff. Well, obviously not that long. Well, how long? 100 years? 1,000 years? 10,000 years? At each interval once ended, the longing for forever would not go away. The finite nature of existence is the reason each day has meaning. If the average lifespan were 10,000 years, you would not strive in any area of your life, as you would know there is always tomorrow. Some can become unsettled at the fact that the earth will continue to spin long after them. But there must be the realization that your memory and legacy lives on without you. You do not have to be the most revered chef or most prolific singer. You could be a parent, a teacher, a nurse, or a faceless voice down the phone on an emergency call line. You have had an impact on the world, whether that be small or big, beneficial or detrimental. Even if that legacy may not be spoken of for eons, nothing ever really is. Even the world spinning on its axis has an expiration date. Oppositely to Western traditions, where the deceased are usually cremated or buried, the Toraja people living in Sulawesi Island in Indonesia celebrate the dead every year. They do this by digging up the corpses of their relatives, cleaning them and dressing them in fresh clothes. The Manin festival, which translates as the ceremony of cleaning corpses, has been held for centuries. To the Toraja people, the body becoming inanimate does not mean that that person is not with them. During the festival, the corpses will be offered drinks, cigarettes, and even spoken to as though they were answering back. Onlookers can say this practice is delaying the inevitable grief that would be inflicted upon loved ones if the body was finally laid to rest. Others might say that it is selfish that the corpse was used as a prop in these ceremonies, but there could also be the argument that as long as you are alive in the hearts and minds of your loved ones, death is as much an illusion as life is. On illusions, the book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley was heavily influenced by real-life experiments of Victorian Britain's physicians and scientists. The book details a monster who was made from sewn-up parts of deceased humans, who was then electrocuted by its creator, Dr. Frankenstein, to bring the monster to life. The actual events witnessed were that of scientists prodding deceased animals with electrical arcs, which caused them to twitch and squirm and give the apparition of life. This reanimation became hot topic among Victorian people, and it was postulated whether there could be a link to escaping death. Knowing what we know now, we do indeed run off electric currents, and artificial production of this can stimulate this illusion. The question can be asked, what sets us apart from being dead? Some will say we are conscious of our actions. Hence, how can we classify that a leaf that has no understanding of how it flaps in the wind is alive? Others will say when your heart stops beating, your thoughts cease. So what about artificial fibrillation, and when someone has suffered a traumatic brain injury and is classified as brain dead, but their body is still able to fully function? Where do we make the distinction? Understandably, some will say these points are pedantic, but for a species that cannot understand what brings about life and cannot agree what happens when you die, who is to make the distinction? If your intricacies, quirks and personality were uploaded onto a supercomputer, a complete replica, would you classify the consciousness as alive or dead? Some would say the soul drives us. Something in us is freed when we die and is able to access a realm we aren't able to comprehend in life. Since the dawn of civilization, we have rationalized every fear, natural phenomenon, and gift as a sign of some divine intervention. As we evolved our sense of self, we could not comprehend the senseless nature of not being able to enjoy it forever without it being for a reason. We gave ourselves purpose, someone or something to wrap their arms around us as we walk into the endless night. They absorb our dread with their narrative. Because of this, they are effective in proportion to the amount of certainty they can project. We spend our whole life marching forward, not realizing our marching path will eventually lead to an abyss.